Youths students from the School of Social Work, the University of Victoria. My name is Kundoqk. I am the director of the school. My English name is Jacquie Green, as most of you might know. Before I begin, I want to take time to acknowledge the territory of which the university sits on, the Lekwungen, Esquimalt, and Wasanich people, and very grateful for their generosity, for their prayers, and for creating the space for us to learn, work, live, and laugh in this precious territory. I also want to take time to acknowledge the territories of which you are located at across the country, acknowledge their ancestors, their elders, their old ones, the knowledge keepers, and all those who you are connected to. As you know, we've been in this crisis for well over a week. I took the time to think carefully in how I wanted to speak to you as students, and I also wanted to not inundate you with tons of emails and course-based posts. I've been in close communication with your instructors, with the practicum team, with our staff in the department. I've also been strategizing with the national deans and directors of social workers across the country, and also have been in consultation with our university, our dean's office, in terms of recognizing various institutional requirements for our students during this time. But before I get into any of our responses and how we're going to support you as students, is I wanted to take time to also say to you, I recognize this is a very stressful and intense time. I want to acknowledge that there are many of you who are impacted by the COVID-19 virus. I keep your family and friends and colleagues in our prayers. And I also want to just name the stresses that are going on for all of you right now, as you endeavor to complete your course or your practicum. So I encourage you to take time to look after yourself, whether that's a day to read, to crochet, to do what it is that you need to do, the connection to your friends or family, however you define family, however you define community. Now is the time more than ever to be connected with those people that are important to you. On a personal note, it has been very stressful on my part. Some of you may know I'm in remission from breast cancer. It's been 5 years for me this year, and I've since March 1st, which is my 5-year anniversary date, have decided I'm gonna now live my life as a survivor and not as a sick person who's dealing with the impacts of chemo and radiation and all of the poisons they put in your body. And I was feeling very excited and happy and pumped. I was going to the gym faithfully. I've been lifting weights at a higher level than I ever did in my life. So I was feeling really good and feeling really strong, and enjoying my work and enjoying, making these different changes that we're doing at the school. And so it is difficult at this time to have to move away from that mind thinking, because I still feel I'm vulnerable due to the different chemo poisons that were put in my body. And so I was worried about interactions with different people. And I did get tested for those reasons, and had to self-isolate for the 14 days. I'm now in day 6 and have 4 more days But I can't tell you what that does to the psyche of your mind. Like psychologically, it messed me up. I did work last week. I had my Zoom meetings. I talked on the phone with several people, but it was very difficult not to be able to hug my daughters and my babies, who I love with all my heart. So it was hard for me, and I can't imagine how hard it is for a lot of you to do the same thing because of the strict rules that are being imposed on us and how we have to isolate ourselves. And I also want to acknowledge the implications for this. Here in the city of Victoria, I can't imagine um, our homeless community. They don't have the same privileges that we do, and what are their options to be safe and to be in a safe place and to get safe food, to get safe to be clean, medication, all of those things. I have a colleagues that work with the opioid overdose, and so people are struggling with addictions, and overdose aren't priority at this time. I'm also aware that there are many, many, many families who rely on social assistance or um, family allowance, and can't go off to the store as easily as we can because they have to wait till I get their check. And just the many different people who work and will be out of work for an unknown time. So I just want to acknowledge the reality of the world that we're in right now in this moment. I want to acknowledge you as students, the stress that's added on already a stressful term, already a stressful program. And so, with that, I've been meeting quite regularly with faculty and staff to help to alleviate some of those stressors. So, thank you for listening to that, and I do really encourage you to take care of yourself. At the end of the day, you're the most important person. Your family's the most important people, and your community, however you define either of those. Because you won't be able to do social work if you can't take care of yourself. So, having said that, I wanted to move on and share with you what we are doing as a school. So last Monday, I met with our admin team, and we made a decision to give options to our staff to have the ability to work from home, um, and that they can have access to all of the databases they need. They can still do all of the things that they normally would do in the office, but they can do it from home. So last Monday, we had some staff members move to remote working from their homes. And by Wednesday, we had pretty much all of our staff working from home. We've got technology set up for those on campus courses to transition over to an online version such as Course Spaces. And we've been provided with a Moodle program where we could have an online course where you can all see each other's at least. So all of our staff are working from home, but everybody has access to their emails. They have access to their phone so they can check their messages from home. We've been meeting quite regularly, and it's been working fine. I've also met with CASWay, the Canadian Association of Social Workers, and there's they've sent out a directive as well in regards to practicum and what that needs to look like. So we've worked on a directive for the January to April practicum, and so what I'm sharing with our staff and with our faculty is that ultimately the goal is for students to complete the course. Um, in recognition that there might be a need for a deferral, our hope is that we will not have to um, work with too many deferrals. My rationale for that is that come the May term, not only are you going to be in a whole new set of courses, but you're going to also have to contend with final papers from this one. So we have been granted extensions at the university level. So we can grant you an extension to complete the course and provide whatever kind of resources that we need to support you to complete the course. I've also been in working with all of our instructors and practicum team. For practicum, if you're in your last 3 weeks of the practicum, come up with an alternative work plan to complete it. Like I said, the goal is to complete it, and also um, if you're if you need to reconfigure a final assignment or the final few weeks of your practicum, please consult with your instructor or liaison, and make sure that whatever the alternative um, is that you're thinking about, that it still meets the need of the course objectives and also how you would be evaluated. Just to let you know, depending on where the class is happening, some assignments have already been handed in, some haven't. I'm leaving at the discretion of the instructor because they know you individually as students, being in their classroom, and they can make that best assessment. So I'm leaving that decision making up to the instructor and the liaison on what the alternative would be for you as students to complete the course. They are in communication with me, and so I'm talking through it with them. They've given me some examples of what that means, and what that could look like. And so, just to conclude from this piece, is that for the January to April term, the goal is to have the course complete with minimum deferrals as possible. Obviously, if there's a need for a deferral, we will work with you to grant that. But we also didn't want 50% of our students deferring courses and going into the May term. Secondly, I'll let you know that we've received, been inundated with emails from the president of the university and different places on the university, one being the library. And so they've obviously closed their doors, but they do have the online where you can order your books online, and they'll be able to work with you in that way. So the library is still can be available if you need some books for any final papers that you're working on or any kind of research that you might be working on. There's been some questions around convocation. I personally don't think that that's something that may happen, but I don't know. And so, what I recommend is that you contact ceremonies, and they will have answers for you for June 2020 convocation. You will get more detailed information from there, so contact them. In terms of we've had quite a large number of students having anxiety about going into their practicum placement for May 2020. We met today as a practicum team. Pat McKenzie, our Associate Director for Student Support and Field Education, is working on a directive that you will all receive, but I just want to let you know that our goal is for you to continue with a practicum placement, but we will transition that into a PLA. So you won't be losing out on a practicum placement. You will be doing a prior learning assessment instead. That's the best option that we could come up with for now. Um, Also, we will have, um, there are possibilities if you're already working, that we can have a conversation with you around an employment practicum position. So all of our practicum team is aware of this. All of these decisions will be done on an individual basis. You will need to contact your practicum coordinator. I will let you know that Sean is still on vacation. He was on vacation with his children for spring break, and he is still on vacation this week. But we'll be checking his emails. Yvette is on full time, and Hillary Lewis. So these are your practicum coordinators. Coretta is our assistant, and will be redirecting you to the proper place in terms of inquiry. So we've all met today, and that's where we're at with the May practicum. Um, we've also received a directive from Casway in regards to a potential of 75% of a practicum, which means that gives us a little bit time to delay or start practicum in May. Um, but your coordinators will talk in more detail with you in terms of what that would look like. So my messaging is that if you've registered for practicum for May, and you're a third year student, our goal is to keep you in that placement, but we would transition that from practicum to a PLA so that you would be still able to maintain your course sequencing of what you need to do, which will answer another inquiry that came around wanting to do social work 413 in the May term and then do practicum in September. So with what I just said, there's no need to do 413 in the May term. You will keep it in September as planned. Um, in terms of the courses that we're finishing up for the January to April term, all of your instructors are aware that the goal is to complete the course. We have discussed a variety of options that different instructors are taking on in their courses around the final assignment and what that would look like. For example, if your final assignment is 40% and it's a research paper, we can negotiate, and I leave this up to every instructor and to you to have a conversation with, but I'm just sharing an example of what we talked about. We can decrease the number of pages for the final assignment. We can be creative in terms of how you submit that final assignment. It could be perhaps a voice over PowerPoint. It could be a video such as this. Or perhaps you can negotiate with your instructor and have a conversation about the final paper. So I've done this before, where there was extenuating circumstances for students. This was over 5 years ago. And what I did was I looked at the final assignment, I looked at the objectives, and I looked at the criteria for the assignment. And what I did was I came up with some questions to have a conversation with the student about. And if I felt that the student met the needs of the criteria, then I would feel comfortable offering a grade to the conversation that we have. So those are some examples of what I'm sharing with your instructors, what I'm sharing to the staff. And we are also sharing our plan of action with our dean and with different members of the board of directors for Casway. So the decisions we've made at this level is really to hopefully alleviate the stressors that are going on but ultimately also so that you can complete the courses that you are registered in for this term. I also recognize that this is probably the last term, or maybe May is the last term for many students who will be convocating. So our goal is to provide you with support so that you can complete courses in order to graduate. We're working very hard. The university is very supportive in the initiatives that we are putting forward. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact your instructor. And if you and your instructor are not clear, bring me into the loop. I've been doing a lot of three-way conversations with students and instructors to just think through the final phase of the January to April term with the goal for the student to complete. So I guess the other thing that I would like to share going into the May term. This is the first year that we're not offering a May intake for students. We only have one intake, which is in September, and therefore our course offerings, our course availability has shifted a little bit, but we are working to address the long, extensive wait lists in many courses, and we're looking at other courses that would be needed to meet the needs of students. So we're meeting and we're planning for the May term. We're making sure that practicum can go through. We're making sure that courses will be available. Ultimately, our goal, as I'll say again and again, is to complete the January to April term, be able to transition into a May term, provide priorities to students who are going to be graduating. And also for practicum, we're going to be creative in what that's going to be looking like. For our grad students, it's the same thing. We want to be able to provide alternatives for our graduate students in our MSW program to complete their courses in this term. We're working very closely with Alexi and Pat McKenzie and what practicum options can be available for you for May. And we're being as creative as possible, while at the same time still meeting the needs for um, the practicum needs, the criteria, and also meeting the needs of our accreditation. We are an accredited school. Therefore, a lot of direction will come from the national body of CASWAY, who is providing an enormous amount of information to all the schools across the country, so that we're following a very similar but unique protocols depending on who we are as a school. For our school, these are our goals, and this is what we're working towards as staff, faculty, and all instructors. So, yeah, so I hope this is helpful. I apologize for the 7 days that it's taken me to send this to you. I wish you well. I wish you and your family are well. Those of you that have children, those of you who are taking care of parents or other people in your life. This is extreme time. This is the testing moment, I suppose. I don't want it to be, but here we are. And this is a situation of dire extremes, and I was thinking. I don't know if many of you know, but my role as director comes up June 30th, and so this is probably one of the major tasks that I've had to contend to, and just work fast, think fast, make decisions fast, and But my messaging always is to work with students to complete this term, alleviate as much stress as possible. Um, and I have openly shared that if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if there's something that I can do to help alleviate any stressors or questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to phone me. I'm inundated with emails, and so I actually prefer a phone call. My phone number is 250-213-9562, and I will do my best to meet with you. I also have access to Zoom, so or Skype, and we can meet that way. But please don't hesitate to call me if you have any questions. I would recommend first that you consult with your instructors and you come up with an alternative completion plan with them. If things get a little bit tricky, then call me and bring me in and we could think through it together. I'm quite confident in all of our teaching staff and faculty, in all of our staff. We're all on the same page, and we're here to support you. So please take care. And at this finest moment in our world, I think of what does social justice look like in this? How do we unpack all of this? And I think for me, I've been really able to see my privilege oozes in this moment because it's not that difficult for me to go and shop and go see my doctor, and so I recognize that, and um, I want to be able to model how we can unpack that and do what we need to for those who can't do that, and unpack my own privilege and what the social justice work looked like. There was an email sent out to our listserv around in BC. They were looking at raising up to $1 million to meet the needs of different transition homes and different homeless shelters, food banks, and all these different areas. I think of local businesses where that's their jobs, and being able to give back in that way, in some way, whether that's packing up a bag of food for them, whether that's bringing some clothing, where it's getting some diapers or games for some children. Yeah, how do we do social justice in this area? But I also want to close on saying, in doing social justice work and finishing up the term, planning for your May term, all of that is exhausting. And we can't do social justice work if you're not well. So please take care. Please stay safe. There are so many rules out there that it's driving me nuts because a world of rules is madness. and But we need to be safe, at the end of the day, and people are getting sick. So thank you for listening to this YouTube, and I wish you all well. Wa Ixqualis.